At level 99, we've nearly reached the summit. We're fully decked out, and the build has never felt stronger. It tanks big hits, destroys everything I throw at it, and it handles the endgame like a breeze. From new gear to major defensive upgrades, this version, it's on a totally different level. Welcome back everyone, my name is Civic Dude, and this is our Zero to Hero series, where we take Moltenstrike of the Zenith from literally just a marauder on the beach to destroying the endgame and basically face tanking everything in the game. And this, I think, is the 5th or 6th video in the series. I forget exactly which number we're on now, but I wanted to do a quick update and show you guys where we are at now. And just so far the progress that we've made, and talk you through some of the changes that we made since the last video. So we'll go through the gear, passive tree updates. We are now at, you can see here, we're now at level 99. We've got about 75% of the way to go to get to level 100. And in addition to that, we've also made some crafting updates with new gear. As you can see, we've also made a big purchase with Progenesis, which has seriously increased our defensive capabilities in the build. And so we'll take a look at POB to compare the previous version with the current version and show you guys just all the progress that we've made. So diving in real quick, let's take a look. The gear is by and large going to be pretty much the same as it was before, except for a couple of major differences. You'll notice now that instead of 2 cogwork rings, we now have a helical ring in our second slot over here on the right. This I crafted myself. I forgot exactly how much money it cost, but you should expect to craft something like this. The bases, I think at the time, were around 35 divines, and then crafting it was an additional, I don't know, let's just say 10 to 12, something like that. So easily going to spend 40 to 50 divines crafting something like this yourself. And I could definitely say that it was very satisfying. You know, we throw a bunch of rage essences at this to get the strength roll, and we're hoping for a solid either all res and chaos res, or all res and all attributes. Either combination of those two things would be great. In this case, we got chaos and all elemental, which meant that we could then craft on all attributes. I think we also, if I remember correctly, how did we do this one? We either got the life roll and then crafted, or we suffixes couldn't be changed and then crafted the life with the harvest crafting. I can't remember exactly, but that's basically the strategy that you go for these kinds of rings to get something like this. And then with these gloves here, I actually was going to originally go for a strength fracture on warlock gloves, but those were ridiculously expensive, so I decided not to go for that. I went to go with just armor base and actually chaos res instead. And so this was the same strategy. We just did Essence of Rage until we hit a T1 speed, attack speed roll. And then from there, we lock suffixes and reforge life from the harvest craft. And you can see here we actually got really lucky with a T1 life roll and a T1 rarity roll, which I wasn't really going for, but I'll take it for sure. And then from there, we finished it off with simply the melee strike range craft, which is what we were hoping for. The last thing that we did on these gloves, you'll notice here the implicits. I can't use my mouse, but you notice here the implicits. We were able to get 2 additional strike targets with the Searing Exarch implicits. And so the way that you do this is you can either start with the 3rd or 4th one. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Lesser, greater, grand, and exceptional. The exceptionals are extremely expensive, so I actually went with grand instead because they were like 4.5 chaos a piece, which was super cheap. So what you do here is you roll the grand essence of both so that you get grand for 3% increased damage. So that's the eater, the blue ones, and then the strike skills target 1 additional. You get both of those on the grand. And then you use Orb of Conflicts, which, because I'm Guardian farming so much, those drop semi-frequently for me. You use those until you get one of the two, hopefully it's going to be the strikes, target additional enemies, to be exquisite, which is the 5th out of 6 total levels for this implicit. 5 and 6 both have the same target 2 additional enemy mod, so you don't need to try and go for 6 on this one. And then from there, you can either leave the blue, the Eater of Worlds, as being 3%, or you can try and throw exceptional Eater of Worlds at it until you get 4% increased damage. If you do that, I should actually specify, if you want to get 4% increased damage, you have to use the exceptionals, and then on top of that, you'll have to have first gotten the strike skills to perfect, because what you're trying to do here is take a perfect red, downgrade it to an exquisite, while at the same time upgrading the exceptional to an exquisite, so that you end up with 2 exquisites, because both of these mods, the 5th and 6th levels, so the exquisite and perfect, are the same. So 4% damage and 2 additional enemies. So that's very expensive to do. I chose not to do that because I don't really care that much. 3% increased damage per 100 strength is perfectly fine for me. I already crushed the end game, so I don't really need any more damage. And what I'm focusing on now more is defenses. So if you're looking for that, that's how you'd go about doing something like that. Now, you'll also note that I picked up Progenesis. This was a huge upgrade for defensive purposes. It just basically means that anytime you take damage, 25% of that is simply not applied, and instead is applied over 4 seconds instead of instantly. And so it's basically just take 25% less damage whenever you get hit. So it's super great for defensive, and most endgame builds have this flask because it's just that strong. Now, I mentioned the mapping that we're doing. I am still Guardian farming, as you can see here, but I have also added into my Guardian farming, let me go over here and show you my idols real quick. I've added Beyond, so you can see here we're doing attract Beyond demons plus increased experience, because I'm trying to level up to 100 as fast as possible. Here are the Guardian maps that drop. I also have essences in here a little bit, but I'm not really going for essences. They're just kind of holdovers from previous idol setups. And so I tried to incorporate Beyond in here as much as I could. And so in addition to Beyond, I actually fairly regularly get Betrayal to spawn. I'm trying to find the one that actually shows it. Let's see where it's at. We can do the stats here. So I think it's down here at the bottom. Yeah, there we go. So roughly half of the maps I get Betrayal to show up, and I'm actually really happy with that because Betrayal seems to give really good XP whenever you interrogate the enemies, and so really good for XP. So very happy with that, and it's just been really fun to do. Oh, and then on my scarabs, I'll show you real quick. I am doing pack size for obvious reasons. We want more mobs, and then we're having Strongboxes. So 15 here plus ambush, which is another 3. So regularly I'm running 18 additional Strongboxes in my maps, which rolling it with Beyond just means that I get more and more monsters, which just means more and more XP. Now, in the POB, or rather in the skill tree here, we did make a couple of updates, and I'll try and call those out real quickly here. We are at level 99, so we've now added this one little life node here temporarily. Once we hit level 100, we'll actually shift that over to here so we can pick up this last strength node right here, Born to Fight. But you'll also note that we have dropped Divine Shield. I don't really think I need it that much, honestly, because I've only got 400 ES, and I don't really rely on my energy shield for anything, so didn't really need that point. And instead, I was able to put 3 points here into max res, which has actually pushed me up to, if I get my flasks all up, which has actually pushed me up to 85 all res. And then if I have my Progenesis up, which I do almost all the time, I'm also overcapped on chaos res. So really strong defensively here with the resistances. I even have 50% block chance, which is fantastic. I'm now over 2500 strength, which is awesome. I think the next breakpoint for Alberons for damage is 2560, if I believe my math is correct. Because it'd be 24 and then 2480 and then another 80, so that's 2560. So, we'll look to do that. The next big piece of gear that we would be going for, I think, is either going to be a new amulet with a simplex, but those are ridiculously expensive, or I'll go ahead and actually farm out the return projectiles enchantment or runecraft here from the King's March, and because I think that's around 120 divines the last time I checked, so it's actually cheaper than a simplex, and that would allow me to drop the the return proj support gem in favor of something like void manipulation. So that'd be great too. All right, now I'm going to leave you guys at the very end of this video with a Uber Eater of Worlds, because we are now taking on Uber bosses. Long story short, he was a pushover, didn't really take much to take him down. But before then, I want to go into POB, and we'll show you some of the stuff in POB and show you how the numbers shape up. All right, now we're here in POB, and the first thing I want to do is take you back to the last POB that we left off the previous video with, just after we switched over to Alberons. Now, first thing that I want to call out is I don't actually know the right way to calculate damage correctly with this build, so I'm going to own that one, guys. I am pretty sure that, we have the right count of projectiles here. We have, previously we were doing average balls, which, threw the number way up in the hundreds of millions. But I'm since been, told by a few people that you're supposed to use magma balls here instead, not the average. And so we're going to stick with that for now. And, the number, of course, is much smaller than it was, but it's still over 100 million for where we left off the previous video. And what we'll do here is we'll use it as a comparison tool to see where we go after we switch over to the current POB where we sit today with the character. So apologies if you feel like I misled you with that really big 800 million number from last video, but that's mostly on me just not knowing how to calculate this correctly. So apologies for that. Long story short, the build feels super strong. So even if it's 100 million versus 800 million, everything simply melts when I played in the game. So I'm not really worried about the actual number here. So here we go. Here's where we left off the previous video with. You can see here we're at 100 million damage, 83, 82 all res. We were not capped on chaos res, and our effective hit pool numbers are in the middle 100s, thousands there. So, not too bad, but definitely some room for improvement for sure. So let's take a look now at where we currently are in the way past Alberons update here. And you'll see here now we still have magma balls for the 5th attack. We've actually increased our damage by about 30 million additional damage. We now are at 85 all res and capped chaos res. And the big update here is we've pretty much doubled our effective hit pool. We're now over 300,000 POB effective hit pool with solid, 230, 280, depending on which damage type it is, 1,000 damage that we can take a max hit of. We are at over 2,500 strength, and it's just a really solid looking build in terms of the numbers, right? Comparing them to the previous build, we've made improvements pretty much across the board, and so I'm very happy with the way that has turned out. We have, like I said, the last point here, the 99th point went to this life node right here. Once we get level 100, we will put both of that point and the last point up here in Born to Fight, which will push us over the, let's see, what does it push us over to? Pushes us up to 150 million with no other updates of DPS. And then, still at the 300,000 effective hit pool. And then, over, let's see where the life is at. Life right now is 7757. Once we go up to level 100, it'll be all of, what is that, 5 more than it is now, which isn't amazing, but super cool to be able to hit 100. So I'm very excited whenever that happens. We'll definitely get there. I've leveled a few characters to 100, and this will definitely be one of the great accomplishments. I love doing that as often as I can. So super excited about that. Now, what are we looking to do in addition to leveling up to 100? Well, I want to get the return proj enchant on the weapon because I was looking at if we actually consider, and I wasn't even thinking of this earlier, but one thing that I want to do is put in void manipulation. So if we look at void manipulation, and we'll just put it at level 2020, and let's take out return proj, you can see here that we go from 146, let's just, the numbers are probably wrong, but let's just look at what void manipulation does. If we look at without, it's 146, and then with, it's 197. So that is a solid, 35% increase to the damage numbers. So that's really strong. I think that's going to be pretty great. So we'll definitely look to slot that in. I saw another piece of tech that I really want to play around with, and this will be if we get to the point of having a simplex ring or its amulet, because on a simplex amulet, you can have effectively the statistics from slower projectiles, so reduced projectile speed, which is something that you want to do with this build because it helps increase the amount of time that the balls overlap and hit and basically shotgun. You can put that on an amulet effectively, which then frees up this gem, which means that we could actually run something like Energy Leech, which if you look at it, all damage, you basically leech all damage as energy shield, and then you deal more damage while leeching and while you're on full energy shield. And because we have instant leech, or at least 10% of damage is leeched instantly, we'll pretty much always be on full energy shield. And so you would see here that, let's see if the config is set for, yeah, full energy shield and leeching energy shield. You'll see here that the damage, suddenly spikes to 230 million. So I think that, both of those things together are definitely something to look into once we get to that point. But where we are at now is exceptionally strong. It feels great in the game. Nothing seems to stand up fight or stand a chance against us. And, at this point, we could call this a complete, total finished character, I think, if you really wanted to. But I'm still enjoying the game a lot. The league has been a lot of fun. And I'm definitely going to look to see, just how far we can push it. We could definitely get a second helical ring here. We could also, like I said, go to a simplex amulet on our amulet, which would be amazing. But where we're at now is a great build. If you guys haven't tried this, I definitely recommend trying it. Hopefully this survives into 326 because this is super fun to play. And at this point, I do want to take us back into the game, and we can look at what Uber Eater of Worlds was like. And speaking of like, if you're enjoying this content, guys, I really hope that you give this video a like and go check out the other videos in this series. This has been super fun to make, and I've really enjoyed engaging with you guys in the comments and just reading the things that you guys have to say about the build. And it's been really encouraging, and I really appreciate the support you guys have shown on these videos. Well, like I said, we're going to do an Eater of Worlds, specifically the Uber version, because we ran that earlier. It was super easy, and I wanted to leave you guys with that. But in the meantime, if you guys are enjoying this, like I said, please do leave a like, and we will see you in the very next episode. We'll see where we can push this build to from here. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.
This is not a battle you can win. Actually,